Hey, welcome back to the channel. I just out at the hangar today, taking care of just a couple details. My steering arm, I've adjusted it twice. I was having to hold left rudder to steer straight with the, and I'm confident that when my rudder pedals are centered, my rudder is centered. But what was happening was I kept running out of thread here, and so what I had to do was basically take it off, thread another 1/4 inch, and then cut another 1/4 inch off of it to just continue to shorten it. And I'm pretty sure this time I'm going to be good, because I was really close last time, but I was just still having to just put pressure on that left rudder to keep going straight. So we'll know for certain how, when I pick up a little more speed. I'll be getting out on the taxiways and runways here really soon, so when I pick up some more speed, we'll see what it's like at that point. But at least just the taxiing I've done in the free taxi area, it just revealed that I needed to get a little more right in that wheel, and so this should take care of it. I'll put this back on today, and that will have that handled. So the good news is I finished my tail wheel training on Saturday. It was an amazing day. Enjoyed it like very much, and Brian, my instructor, I mean, he really put me through it. I flew twice, did about 2.3, and I actually had just over 18 hours total to get my endorsement. And I think that's because in the very beginning I wasn't really current, so it took a few lessons just to get back up to speed flying in general. And then, as you know, I wanted to save these last couple hours until I got much closer to flying my own airplane. And actually I made a commitment with Brian that before I make that first flight, I'm actually going to come out and fly with him again, and we're actually going to fly in the Citabria. We're going to fly that first test card where I can record. I can have the iPad on one leg and a notepad on the other, and I can record the information that I need to for that test card. So once I get through my taxi phase, then I'll go. I want to go back out and just do one more flight with him, just to fly that test card before I do it in my own airplane. So mainly, he's super interested in the whole process. I mean, he's fascinated by it. So it's going to be cool to kind of walk through this with him. And the good news is, you know, I have a camera mount on the top of the tail, and I have a camera mount on the right wing. And with the camera mounted on the right wing, I'll just show you here. Basically, we get a full view of the airplane, so you can see what's happening with the elevator. You can see what's happening over there with the rudder, which is really nice. And then, of course, the other view, which you've already seen before, it'll be real easy to monitor how I'm doing on centerline tracking and things like that, because you have a view basically straight down the plane this way, which is really nice. It'll be helpful for me. It'll be fun for you. It'll be fun for him, because as you know from the very beginning of this, it was my plan to take you on the entire journey, and here we are. we're at this point, and it's been really fun so far, and this milestone of getting that endorsement is just really it just feels very rewarding to have done that. So I was telling you about the last flight, you know, some of the things that we did I just had never done before, and that's one of the things I appreciate about training with Brian, is that you know, number one, we're in an aerobatic plane that doesn't care if you fly it crooked. and it doesn't really know if you're going crooked or straight, and it tolerates it all. So but we did climbing, turning, stalls, and the objective he had for me was I wasn't allowed to look straight ahead. I had to either be looking at the right wing tip or the left wing tip, or back behind the wings while I'm turning and climbing and stalling in both directions, which were really interesting. And of course, what you learn by doing that is when you come out of that, you know, it's a little bit stick forward for the stall recovery, and then it is step really hard on the rudder to correct the directional. The instincts say use the ailerons to get the plane level, because it definitely broke really hard on both sides. But learning to really pound that rudder to straighten the plane out, what I found after doing that a few times is, you know, I was actually sort of starting to anticipate the brake, or right when I would start to sense the brake, I was already on the rudder. And so it wasn't a wild swing of the nose, it was actually very gentle in the direction that it was going, which I'm sure that's the lesson, right? And then we did slips. We were doing climbing slips and stalling in that configuration. And we did falling leaves, and which is, you're just like, you're stalling, you're hanging on the prop like this, and you're working really hard with your feet to keep the nose pointed in the same direction while all that's going on. And anyway, that's just a snapshot of just a few of the things that we did. It was hot, it was sweaty, it was hard work. My landings were great, and we just had a really good day, and things went extremely well. So that's what we wanted. And now the next thing I have to do is, as soon as I solve my tack problem, which I believe I'm finally close to, there are unknowns that I'm still not aware of. I don't have answers for some of the unknowns. My DAR is ready. He knows I'm ready to call him at any moment, and I've got that last piece I want to get solved. And as soon as I get that handled, everything else, Parker and I have been through the plane front to back a couple of times, and so I believe I'm ready for the DAR. It'll just be in now having my license, my endorsement, so I'm ready for that. Everything's just coming together, and it's really nice. But I wanted to just give you an update and kind of let you know where I'm at, in case you guys wondering if have I flown yet? Have I been out taxiing more? I did taxi a little bit more. I taxied out to the fuel island, put a little bit of fuel in. And what I discovered on my tanks, even though they read empty, 3 gallons in this tank is when fuel is just right to the bottom front edge of the tank. That's 3 gallons with it sitting like this. And when you're up level, 3 gallons is reading just above this quarter of a tank mark here. The rod inside there, it's sort of like an exponential curve. It starts kind of flat and it goes really sharp in the middle. So I'm sure once you get above 3 gallons, it probably goes pretty quick to half a tank once you hit the, because three actually is almost half a tank, but it reads a little low because of that kind of flat curve on that rod. I can just show it to you here. So I had to add some float to the bottom because with this piece on the bottom right here, the gray right there, you can kind of see now how that curve is a little bit flat in the beginning and then it speeds up in the middle. I needed for this float to sit on the bottom of the tank. Otherwise I was getting very little reading. Even with like 2 gallons in, I really couldn't tell if I had fuel or if I was empty when it was level, which now I can tell, so I feel good about that. So, but in order to accomplish that, I had to put some extra float on that, and that was just, I just carved it out, epoxied it to the existing float. did a little test of epoxying 2 pieces of that together, and when you break it apart, it breaks at the foam, not at the epoxy, so it holds extremely well to that material. So I did do that, take care of that. I'm still open here until I've got my windscreen off. I've got the back of my panel is off, because what I've finally decided, this is the P lead that I was using here to for my tachometer, and I was coming off the P lead on the mag down here, and what I actually, so what I did was the avionics guy on the field here happened to stop by. He's kind of been watching me, and I told him last time I saw him that I was kind of struggling with this tach problem, and so when he came back this time, he said what they do when they're working with MGL, any MGL EFA systems or instruments, they always go into the vent port on the magneto, and that's how they get a clean signal, because basically that's a Hall sensor that's reading off of the internals of the magneto, and so it connects to one of the wires on the instrument for 5-volt power, and then it connects to the signal line, which is the blue wire on my instrument, and then it connects to ground, which I'll just take it over to the bus and ground it from there. So the wire will just go from here, it comes with a 6-foot wire, so it'll just go back into there, and I'll coil it up, and it's like a shielded wire on the bottom of that. So the vent plug that you actually go into is the one that's down underneath here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's this one on the bottom right here. So based on everything that I've read about that and talking to him, you know, he really believes this is the answer to the issue. So fingers crossed. We're gonna give it a go, because everything else I've tried is just not it's just not doing it. So I tried the shielded wires off the P lead, no change, still get the same noise. And so as a matter of fact, you can turn the primary off when the secondary is running, and I'm still reading 400 RPMs from somewhere. Even when this wire was completely turned off, it's still picking up something from someplace. And the thing I didn't try was with this disconnected from anything. What do I get at that point? And so I was considering maybe just checking that out, but first I'm just gonna go ahead and wire up this new device and see how that works. So, but we tried wrapping the plug wire on basically this wire. You put 5 to 7 wraps around here, and then you go back to here, so it carries it to the instrument. I've got a resistor in line like was recommended. That didn't work, so then I switched over to the secondary wire over here, and I tried that one here. I ground the instrument itself with its own ground to the engine block, so it's not going to the bus, the negative bus. So that's this ground wire here, and none of those solutions were working. I tried trimming the RPM. You can turn down the sensitivity, and that maybe helped a tiny bit. I could see a little bit of change in the sensitivity adjustment, but not enough to have a steady reading, because at this point I don't know what my idle is, and I don't know what my top end is, because the tach numbers jump around so much that, you know, I don't know if it's 800 or if it's 1300 or if it's 1000 at idle. I don't know if it's 3,000, if it's 3,500, or if it's 4,000 something at high speed, because that's the range that the numbers are jumping around. Now the prop's designed for this engine for maximum RPM, so I'm pretty confident we're not going 4,000 RPMs. So it's just a matter of getting something that I can rely on and trust and know that that the RPMs are what they say they are. So I considered just getting a manual reader just to put behind the prop here, and just so I can see what the RPMs are actually doing with a manual, like an RC prop reader. I thought about giving that a try, but we'll see how this next solution going into this vent port actually helps out, and then we'll go from there. So the next thing is oh, give me 1 second here. So the next thing is I did actually move the engine. You can see here, this is the new arrangement, and what we have is we have this 1/4 inch plate that's bolted to the old holes. You can see that right down here. So that plate's bolted to the old holes, and then the engine was moved forward. This one bolts through the bed mount and the plate and everything. The very front one is just bolted to the plate itself. So I had to actually remove a 1/4 inch off of all my standoffs, and this piece here, I was able to draw that up on CAD. I don't know if you're familiar with Send Cut Send. I'll put a link to their website in the description. Anything 4130 that you have for your plane, all of the pieces that you need for your control stick and for your hinge bearings to ride in, and aluminum for that matter. They cut my control horn for the rudder. They cut the some pieces for like my yoke for the control stick. Anything like that you need, you just take the drawing and send it to them, and they have, you know, really fair pricing, I believe, on providing those things. But they just laser or water jet or however they cut them. But these pieces came perfect. Now they were able to cut the slot for me here, but I actually needed to bevel it after I got it, so that was no big deal, and I could have just made the slot a little bigger so it would fit in there without having to bevel anything. But this method actually worked out perfect. Now you can see this is off center because the engine actually offsets a 1/4 inch from this point on the case to the firewall. You're a 1/4 inch closer here than you are over here because the engine has some left thrust to it. So that's why you see this off to the side like so. It was an attempt to keep the center of the engine still going down the center of the airplane. So yeah, you know. But this worked out beautifully. It was much quicker than I expected. I don't have all the tools here. I don't have electricity here in my hangar. So unfortunately I live 10 minutes away, which is a super blessing. But I was able to bring the plates in, mark the existing holes, go home and drill them, bring them back, bolt them in place, put the engine on. Parker and I did weight and balance. We moved the engine a little bit further forward than we first had it. And then we took weight and balance again. And once we were satisfied with that, we were able to mark all of these holes on the top of the plate. So we took the plates off, took them home, drilled them out, and then I painted them. Brought them back, just bolted it all together, and then I started working on the wires. I did have to get a new choke cable assembly because this is 3 inches plus longer now, and I had to get new wire for my throttle cable, and but that worked out fine as well. There's no problem there. And you can see while I had that all off, I actually put some barrels. I machined up some little barrels. If you're an RC guy, that you would refer to it as a wheel collar, and I put one of those on the front and back of the actual barrel here that you can see. And so the primary one that's holding the wire, but then these two are like a secondary stop. I have them on this end, and I also inside the cockpit for the throttle there as well. I have one on each side of that barrel, center barrel as well. So just a little extra safety on the throttle there. And I had to extend this tube here. As far as wires go, I had enough extra wire in my panel that I didn't actually have to extend any wires. Everything there worked out good. And as you saw, I added the independent ground for the instrument itself, just to make sure that it wasn't picking up any madness from the negative bus in here. So yeah, did have to extend. I guess I did extend the wire for the oil pressure, and I had to extend the red wire coming off of the secondary ignition. But that's easy, just with some sleeves in the middle there. So yeah. Yeah, so that's where I'm at, and which is actually a really good place. I'm super happy with this. Just so you know, the numbers. Basically, you might remember when I had 5 gallons of fuel in the plane. It put me just over, just right on the maximum FCG limit. And what's happened with the move, the engine move, is it actually puts me with 5 gallons on board. It puts me right at the sweet spot of the 29% CG limit. So, or the 29% percent of chord CG location, which is on the sheet. It states that has kind of been proven to be the kind of the sweet spot for this airplane. So before I was at 29% before fuel, but then I was resting on that AFCG with fuel on board, and I didn't want to do that. So we made the decision. We just did a risk analysis basically, and we said, we're going to risk spending a little more money. The metal bars were like $35 a piece from Send Cut Send. They're 4130 2-inch by 12-inch bars, and risk time. I knew it was going to take a little more time because we had to get everything moved and everything reconnected. So there was a time investment. There was a little bit of a dollar investment, but well worth it, because now I can feel extremely comfortable that, even if I'm going to take a longer trip and I want to put in a couple extra gallons to get that extra hour, I'm going to feel good that I'm not going to be busting that FCG limit by doing that. So, and I've made my blocks that are going to go a laminated 1/8 inch and some white pine blocks that I'm going to actually fill these holes. So you see here. So that'll be coming up where I'll get these, I'll get the fabric out of the inside of here, and then I'll be able to fill these in, because there's no need for them now, and I might as well just take the extra strength that that's going to provide by having that filled in. It's well supported on the back side, as you know, you'd put this big doubler piece in anyway to help carry the load across here. Same over there. Probably is fine the way it is. I just think it'll look much cleaner. Not necessarily in a big hurry to do that, but I will get around to getting that taken care of. And now that I've got the blocks cut, it's just giving them a little sanding with a file and getting this, this fabric out of here. Get those epoxied in, and then I'll just basically put a new piece of fabric over it, and then get the inside finished and painted. That'll be someday when I can't do anything else on the plane, I'm going to take care of that. So yeah, so everything's going great, and we will be hopefully in just a matter of days here, we'll be at a point where we're going to be continuing the taxi testing. We'll get out on the actual runway, and then taxiway coming back, and gradually increase our speed, just to continue to check things out. And I have a test card as well for that process. One of the things Brian and I have talked about, my instructor, is which I found really interesting. The test cards don't tell you necessarily when are you ready to move to the next card. So we talked about me sitting down and creating some criteria for myself on when do I believe that I'm ready to move on from that taxi card to that first flight card. I think it just has to do with we'll be doing the tests, we'll be examining the footage together, we'll watch the video, I'll create the video, we'll take a look at the views, and we'll see how things are going, and both with the tail down and with the tail up. And the goal is to just get to a point where I'm not having to be super conscious about holding the center line with the tail up, and things kind of fall into a second nature category. Then I believe that's probably the trigger that's going to say, okay, I think you're ready to move on. So anyway, when you watch my flight test program, try not to be impatient with me. I'm being very deliberate about the process, and I know inside I just want to go fly. So trust me, I'm there already. But I want to be very smart, and I want to do this the right way. And besides, any time I spend on the ground, tail up, tail down, driving around, it's just going to give me more time on the engine, more time, monitoring temperatures, and doing, seeing, what might come loose, or it just gives me the opportunity to really flush out the airplane before that first flight. So anyway, so thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for your patience as well with this particular video, because it's just me talking to the camera a lot. So, but I believe it's necessary, and I didn't want to just leave you hanging on what's happening currently. So here we are, and here we go. All right, I'll catch you later.